This video is brought to you by Imprint. Unfortunately, conflict in Congo and Rwanda is a decades-old story. Sometimes the situation flares up, like it did in the First and Second Congo Wars, the latter even sometimes being nicknamed the Great War of Africa. Recently, things have seemed a touch calmer. That was until the resurgence of the M23, a major rebel group with questionable connections that's re-sparked chaos in the region. So in this video, let's unpack the region's complex past, and why the worst may still be yet to come. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. To understand what's going on, we need to go back to the Rwandan genocide of 1994. Over the course of 100 or so days, ethnic Hutu militias killed some 800,000 ethnic Tutsi and moderate Hutus, with the genocide only ending after a Tutsi rebel group fought to take control of the country, prompting more than 2 million Hutus to flee to the eastern DRC. In 1996, Rwanda led an invasion of the DRC, seeking to root out the remaining extremists responsible for the genocide who had sought refuge across the border. This first invasion sparked the First Congo War, which by 1997 saw the country's dictator toppled and replaced by his long-term opponent, Laurent Kabila, who had the backing of Rwanda and its allies. This relationship didn't last though, and Kabila ordered the Rwandans and other foreign troops out of the country in 1998, setting into motion the devastating Second Congo War, also known as the Great War of Africa. And that title seems appropriate, because at least 9 countries got involved in the conflict, and over 5 million people were killed, according to estimates from the International Rescue Committee, principally through disease and malnutrition, making it the deadliest conflict since World War II. The in-state conflict finally ended in 2003, but unrest in the eastern DRC persisted due to the presence of a significant number of armed groups who opposed the DRC government. And in 2012, perhaps the main rebel group today, M23, was formed by ex-members of another Tutsi-dominated militia that had signed a peace agreement with the DRC government 3 years earlier. In 2012 and 2013, M23 then launched a major rebellion in the eastern region of North Kivu, which was eventually put down by the Congolese army and UN forces who drove the group out of the country. However, M23 re-emerged in 2022 with a new and ongoing offensive in the same area, reigniting tensions between Rwanda and the DRC. Now, the Congolese government have long accused Rwanda of supporting M23, but while Rwanda used to deny this, it's now become impossible to refute. In December, a UN expert's report stated that the Rwandans' goal is to reinforce M23 by providing troops and material, and to use them to secure control over mine sites, gain political influence in the DRC, and decimate FDLR, an anti-Rwanda rebel group that Rwanda claims is supported by the DRC government. Then in June, the UN's final report went even further, claiming that Rwanda had actually deployed at least 3,000 troops inside the Congo alongside M23. Now, this wasn't a total surprise. Drone and satellite images had caught Rwandan troops crossing the border, and M23 had been able to get their hands on some suspiciously advanced weaponry. But the sheer number of troops is remarkably high, especially given that the M23 themselves only have something like 3,000 troops. The report also claimed that Uganda, which already has a presence in Congo, nominally to fight the Islamic State's African offshoot, was also supporting M23 by letting them operate out of Ugandan territory. With Rwandan and Ugandan support then, M23 has been able to rapidly expand the territory under its control. To make matters even more complicated, the report also claims that Burundi covertly deployed something like 1,000 troops in the region, nominally to fight back a Burundi opposition group with the help of the Congolese army. But this has essentially pitted the Burundian and Rwandan troops against one another, sparking fears of a regional escalation. While there are long-standing ethnic and political grievances at play here, tensions have been exacerbated by renewed demands for the DRC's mineral resources. For context, the DRC has vast reserves of long-coveted commodities like gold, coal, and iron, but also stuff like cobalt, lithium, and copper, which are all experiencing a spike in demand because of their importance to the energy transition. Anyway, while the DRC and Rwanda agreed to a truce in late July, M23 almost immediately insisted that they weren't bound by it, accusing the DRC government of using previous ceasefire agreements to rearm. And it seems unlikely that this truce will succeed where the previous ones have failed. And this speaks to another complicating factor. While it's true that the M23 are supported by Rwanda, they nonetheless have their own grievances against the Congolese state, which they feel have long discriminated against the Tutsi people. If tensions continue to escalate then, and Rwanda continues to deepen its involvement in the conflict, other countries could be drawn in too. While few outside forces are keen on fighting M23, largely because the Rwandan army is considered to be one of the most capable in Africa, a plethora of other groups are already in the region. As we just mentioned, Burundian forces are probably active in the region too. But then there's also the UN's 11,000 strong peacekeeping mission, which has been asked by the Congolese government to stay on indefinitely. Plus, South Africa, Malawi, and Tanzania all have troops on the ground as of December, as part of the Southern African Development Community's peacekeeping mission. Now, there have already been several lethal mortar attacks on South African bases around Goma by M23-aligned forces, killing 5 soldiers and injuring a further 33 this year. On top of that, there are also a whole load of non-state actors too, including Russia's Wagner Group, who have also been active in the region, having been contracted by the different players. All in all, the confusing array of actors and the fact that no ceasefire agreement seems forthcoming doesn't bode well. And while we don't want to be too pessimistic, the risk of a third Congo war, akin to what we saw in the late 90s and early 2000s, is now non-trivial. And if any such conflict incurs even a fraction of the harm done by the second Congo war, it'll be a humanitarian catastrophe. If you want to keep learning, the very best way is through Imprint. That's the brand new way to learn, built from the ground up. And seriously, unless you've used the app before, you likely haven't experienced something like this. That's because Imprint is beautifully illustrated and animated, creating a highly visual, effective, and interactive learning experience built for bite-sized learning. Now, you can take advantage of their expansive library of courses, book summaries, and articles to learn about psychology, philosophy, leadership, the science of happiness, productivity systems, finance, science, technology, health and wellness, history, and more. Plus, you can learn about these things quickly, with most individual lessons taking just a few minutes to complete. That doesn't mean that it's light on information either, though. Imprint is built around the science of learning, so it helps you to build habits around learning, utilizes high-quality visuals to boost understanding, as well as letting users learn at their own pace. Ultimately, Imprint is a way to feel good about your screen time and learn something new, rather than just mindlessly scrolling on social media. So stop doom scrolling and start learning. You can do that by joining the millions of users already learning with Imprint by clicking the link in the description. And the first 200 people to sign up will get 20% off an annual plan. Plus, they'll know that you came from us.